Hi, it's Kirby Sommers. Today is March 26, 2025. It is a Wednesday. And the purpose for this podcast is, I guess, to reinforce the fact that I am not merely a researcher or a podcaster, as others across this platform and others, but that I am, in fact, someone who has survived many things, such as the transportation, such as the R word, and someone who has managed uh, through a miracle or many miracles or just plain luck to uh, not be unalived. And the reason I'm doing this, and the way I'm going to do it, I should just say it first, is to read you portions of my memoir. And I will leave the title of my memoir in the box below. And while I appreciate everyone's commentary and people suggesting, oh, well, you should investigate this, you should investigate this person, you should investigate that certain unalivement, you should investigate this and this and this and that. All that's fine and good for people who actually just focus on that and have no connection to what they discuss. What I discuss on my various platforms are things that are connected to me in one way or another. That is what put me on this path to begin with. And so I'm not, let's say, going to do deep dives on something that is not tangentially or directly related to my life. Now, when I was just trying to figure out which part of my memoir I was going to share with you, I didn't even realize that I had BCCI in here, that I had all kinds of things. Now, while I have Donald Trump's name in here and I have Joe Biden's name in here, I want to underscore the fact that do not believe in one party over the other. So for anyone who is pro this, and I used to get a lot of requests from people who were politically inclined to either bash one politician over the other, not just in the United States, but also in other countries. I was like, no, that's not why I'm here. However, I am going to start just with the BCCI because I'd forgotten that I had it in my memoir. Joe Biden was one of the people Ira spoke about almost more than anyone else. Macquarie, a reckless holding company, had its headquarters in Philadelphia. And when I wrote this, by the way, I had not frankly realized because I wrote this in the mid 1990s. Once I thought I was alive and safe, and I had gotten married, and I was living in another state entirely, and I didn't know about this world that I had somehow become part of, or that it had multiple tentacles that reached in every direction. I just didn't know. And I didn't know the extent of, let's say, Biden's connection or even Trump's connection, or any politician who becomes president, including the people who I hear on other channels regarding former US presidents and or heads of other countries that are in some way benign. Well, no, I mean, I discovered as I went deep into my research that these people are not so-called benign. Not any of them. You have to be a certain kind of, let's call it psychopath, in order to become a high-ranking political official of any country, especially in the United States. And so when I wrote this, and I'm just going to read it to you as I wrote it, however, I later discovered that it was done differently. The meeting of Biden and the whole thing was done differently than I had initially been led to believe by my abuser and by early research, because again, I worked on this in the 1990s. So Joe Biden, I wrote, had been a Delaware senator since he won the 1972 election. Now, I'm just going to include here that I have subsequently learned that he won that because he had gotten, in fact, it's on my Substack. Everything of importance is on my Substack. On my Patreon, I do not include anything that's on my Substack. It's only in a very unusual, like if there's a small little string. So my Substack is very different from my Patreon. And then on this channel, I share what I can from both of those sources, but I cannot share everything, hence the reason for my books, my articles. And so, again, on my Substack, I have the actual way that the Rickless family uh, was a very instrumental in entire the entire political life of, let's say, Joe Biden. And and that can be echoed, frankly, for a lot of these presidents, okay? So anyway, I'm just going to continue. From 1987 through 1995, he served as chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, where he had oversight for the Department of Justice at the height of the SNL and the BCCI scandals. So I'm going to pause every now and then, and it's just because I have to just be clear about what I want to share or not. And so while I do this, I'm going to also, make notes for myself. So the Bank of Credit and Commerce, dubbed the Bank of Crooks and Criminals, was in fact a CIA Mossad front. And then I include an image in my book, in my memoir, that jury finds BCCI bankers guilty. And I show one of many of these articles that came out at the time. And then I write, to briefly summarize BCCI, it was founded in 1972 by Aga Hassan Abadai, a Pakistani banker. By 1991, it was defunct with 3,000 criminal customers. All of these men involved were involved in all manner of crimes, gun running, narcotics, financial crimes for nuclear weapons, money laundering. Anything and everything that was illegal was done through this bank. In 1992, Desert News explained how the international banking criminal syndicate worked. And then I quote from that article: there are a variety of connections between Milken, Keating, Hall, and various BCCI entities that got involved in maneuvering money for the various players in the savings and loan world, BCCI investigator Jack Blum said. He referred to three of the largest financial scandals in the 1980s, Michael Milken and the downfall of Drexel Burnham Lambert, Charles Keating, and Lincoln Savings and Loan, and Paul of Centrust. The book, Outlaw Bank by Jonathan Beatty, with one T, described it in the following manner. a division of the bank called Black Network, which functions as a global intelligence operation and a mafia-like enforcement squad. This 1,500 employee Black Network has used sophisticated spy equipment and techniques, along with bribery, extortion, kidnapping, and even by some accounts, unaliving. The book details some of the findings of the subsequent 1991 BCCI investigation chaired by Senator John Kerry and Senator Hank Brown, specifically the use of children to exploit and gift to their customers. And then I start quoting again from the article. The protocol department of BCCI was also responsible for sweeping the countryside in search of another kind of prey, very young girls for the entertainment of these Middle Eastern businessmen. And the wife of a Pakistani doctor was in charge of rounding up the girls and bringing them to Karachi to be outfitted in proper clothing before being presented to the princely clients. Often she would shepherd more than 50 girls at a time through a department store, shopping for jewelry and dresses. This practice was so successful, far more effective than giving away microwave ovens or toasters, that the bank would spend as much as $100,000 on such an evening's entertainment. We're talking about a party for $100,000. I am sure you have heard parties costing $100,000 as it pertains to the Sean Combs case. Well, I'm going to go back to the article that I included in my memoir, which I wrote in the mid-1990s. According to the Senate testimony of Nazir Shinoy, Madame Rahim would also interview girls, women, and take them to Abu Dhabi for a dancing show or arrange some singing shows. Throughout the Middle East, dancing girls and singing girls are euphemisms for prostitutes, meaning paid for. But instead of in those days when the newspapers would write about this kind of behavior, the word prostitutes puts the blame and the choice on the victims. And so these were, in fact, transportation rings, meaning they were lured into this kind of life where they were then stuck. And so that's one of the reasons I dislike that word very much. And I'm going to read a little bit more, and then I'm going to explain why I've read this to you. In 1992, the Washington Post reported that when Senator John Kerry asked Shinoy whether 15, 16, and 17-year-old girls were procured, he smiled and said, "Yes, sir." Providing minor girls for BCCI customers was the primary responsibility of the protocol department. In 1988, they spent about $6 million employing about 450 people. Among these young girls, Joe Biden was an influential member of the Foreign Relations Committee. We have heard the Foreign Relations Committee as it pertains to Jeff, who was a member of the Foreign Relations Committee. Well, what I have seen no one else discuss is that so was Joe Biden and others who no one has even bothered to name unless everything has been scrubbed, and no doubt there has been a lot of scrubbing. Now, when I was writing my book, I had actual newspapers. I wasn't relying on the internet because we didn't really have it when I began working on my book. I'm going to begin. Joe Biden was an influential member of the Foreign Relations Committee. When it lobbied John Kerry and I have to pause every now and then because this is heavy stuff, to end the investigation into BCCI. In hindsight, when I too was an S slave, I wonder how many of the numerous visits the Ricklesses made to Biden were connected to the BCCI affair. It should be noted, I wrote, that there are similarities between Michael Milken's financial crimes and those of BCCI. Now, what I want to interject and add here is that in my current series, that the name almost appears as though it means nothing because I'm looking at Gerald Ford's odd connection to certain things. What I'm really doing there is I am giving you a step-by-step connection with receipts of how each of these, not just PDF, but also persons, including males, who have been transported, including women of age, because it doesn't matter if you're a male or a female, or you're younger or you're older, or it's I have to agree that it's incredibly horrific when really young children are put into this because they really have no way out. I am, by the way, considered an anomaly to not only have survived what I survived psychologically, what I survived physically, what I survived mentally, but to be here on my YouTube channel sharing my insight. My insight is very different than, let's say, somebody who just focuses on true crime and is looking at this from the outside. My insight into what I share, specifically on my Substack, to a lesser degree on my Patreon, although I again, the two platforms have completely different content, is done from a place of having been involved and having heard things, seen things, witnessed some things. And so to just summarize, Joe Biden was an influential member of the Foreign Relations Committee, which lobbied John Kerry, who frankly didn't need to be that much lobbied, in hindsight, when I look at things, because there was enough dirt on Kerry as well, to end the investigation into BCCI, and frankly, ended it did. Now, I'm just trying to figure out what I want to share with you afterwards. I think I'll just share, I'll share the attempt to silence me, at least the first attempt, which I include a photo of what was left of. That's just my living room, but my entire apartment looked like that. So the cover that I used for this podcast are photographs, thank goodness, that one of my friends took of my apartment after I managed to escape having been held hostage in my apartment, basically kidnapped, where I was held for 5 days by someone who had been inserted into my life. Now, for those of you who are aware of Rose McGowan's story and the Harvey Weinstein story, the larger story, and the fact that she had people, it had been discovered that Harvey Weinstein's attorney, David Boies, hired a firm by the name of Black Cube, staffed by former Mossad operatives, to befriend her and to find out what she was doing. And so in my life, I had many people insert themselves into my life, befriend me, in order to discover what I was doing. Not to say that I also didn't have much more professional, like, people follow me, because the police captain of, let's say, Jeffrey's um, local police station was given a six-figure amount to hunt me down for the person about whom I wrote my memoir about. And what I have since learned about the police, and we do know that in the Franklin situation, let's say, that that there were certain people that were also from, let's say, the Omaha police that were involved. And in almost all of these things, that the way that I look at it, and that the way that I presented on my Substack, I show again with receipts how they are all part of just something that seems to be normal and part of the way the government is run. These are not anomalies. This is why you're not going to see a list. I keep seeing people, the list, the list, the list. And at this point, I'm thinking it's just clickbait for anyone who says the list, the list, the list. There is no such thing. Okay, I'm gonna read I tumble into a much treasured slumber just as quickly. I am awakened by loud thumps. Quick, heavy steps run across the roof above me. I hear my heart pulsating in my ears as I sit up, hoping that the 3 deadbolts I've installed on my front door and the gates I've put on the windows are enough to protect me. For the 100th time, I wonder why Ira took such care to have Dave and his partner install such an intricate alarm system in my store, and never did the same for my home. Someone lands with a thud on my air conditioner. And for a brief moment, I think the air conditioner and whoever is on it is going to fall, because the whole wall shakes and the air conditioner is bent. Loud, guttural screams pour out from the deepest part of my being. I am overcome with fear, and I can't stop screaming because I know I'm going to die. In the dark, I reach for the black silk robe I keep at the foot of the bed. I'm halfway into it when I see the fist, then the arm, smashing through my bedroom window. Shards of glass, large and small, spew like popping popcorn into the air. Jesse's contorted face pushes through next, and our eyes meet. I am frozen in time and space. The light from the moon shines from behind him, and I can see his face glimmering like a demon from hell, drenched in sweat, soot, and blood. Gone is the face that once reminded me of Michelangelo's David. He has transformed into Jack Nicholson from Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. And then I go into what happened, because he walks, when the police do not come, and I call them twice, as I have mentioned in previous podcasts. And the police, I did not understand at that point why the police would not respond to my calls for help. I understand it now clearly. However, when he is finally in my apartment, there is a very large, like a 10-inch type knife. And it's explained in my book how that knife came to be in my apartment. And I was sitting, I decided if I'm going to be killed, I'm not going to die a coward. And so I sat on my sofa and I just looked at him. When I did that, he said, "I'm here to kill you." Okay. Well, my book is available on my website. I'll leave a link below. And, that wasn't the first incident. And again, the reason I thought I should include this is because I've tried to say in previous podcasts, something weird is happening. These are not just like things that I randomly say when I say I'm talking about X and odd things are happening. Therefore, I'm not going to talk about it on this platform, but I will very likely discuss it on my Substack. And I'm just giving those of you who might be new or those of you who have forgotten, I am reminding you that I am here not because I don't have anything else to do, but because I began this quest, this journey, in order to piece together many things that I did not understand, that I understand much better now. And what I do is I don't share information that every other channel shares. And as much as you guys want to be very helpful, and I appreciate it when you leave me the name of this podcaster or that podcaster or this channel or that channel, or go listen to, I appreciate it, but I don't think many people here understand that what I do is I bring what I know and I do my own research, and oddly, clearly, it connects to current things that we're discussing. It connects to current news. It doesn't surprise me any longer. However, I have my own um viewpoint. I think viewpoint is the best word. And so I just thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to read a little bit of my memoir. And it'll help those of you who are new to my channel, because a lot of other people have been following me for a number of years, and they know very well my story and why I'm here and why there's constant pushback against me. They understand. But those of you who are just finding me because I appeared on this podcast or that podcast speaking about a narrow thing like Hollywood or this or this or this or that. Well, these are just tangents that I go into because they are connected and loop back into my own experience during these years of my life. All right, guys. Well, I hope you give this a like and I hope you have a good day. Bye.